Can you all hear me okay? I wanted to have when I found out I was going last, I wanted to have a different conversation with you all. And I knew that going last after this group would be incredibly hard to follow. And so I promise I will be really brief and I will get to that story. So when Congressman Salmon, when Ryan Burrows, the executive director of Kratom, asked me to talk about this issue, I said so under some very specific conditions. One was I'm used to being an attorney, and I'm not representing you. I'm not going to be your advocate and pound the table and say whatever the heck you want me to say. I'm going to tell the truth and tell my experiences. And so I know it's for that reason that they asked me to come and talk about my experiences, both as the US drug czar, but also my experiences with the FDA and in working with most of the folks on this panel. And I should say, I couldn't agree more with what Dr. Smith said. Please, please fully fund and exceed NIDA. Please, I beg you. The but I also come today with a different experience and with a great deal of humility. I offer that I'm not testifying today or speaking today based on my experience at ONDCP alone. I'm also talking today as the parent of a child who is in recovery from a dependence to opioids. And by the grace of God, we're in our seventh year with our daughter. And we have a very, what appears to be, on bended knee, a very happy outcome. And it's because of some wonderful treatment that they got. I see John Shinholzer here from one of the leading treatment centers in the country, based pretty close by, 2 hours away in Richmond, Virginia. There's some phenomenal treatment centers out there, and we're blessed to have been able to do that with our daughter. So I speak with humility for her. I speak also with humility on behalf of my best friend who lost his son 6 years ago today. So I looked at my phone real quick. I called him at 7:34 this morning to say, "I know today's a tough day. I know it's the sixth anniversary of your son." So, respectfully to the American Kratom Association, I'm not here to talk on your behalf. I'm here humbly to talk on behalf of family members and other people. About 20 million people, we think, in the US have an addiction of some sort. And so it's in that capacity that I speak with you. As talked about, we're losing 110 more or less, according to the CDC data, 110,000 people in the last 12 months. That's someone dying every 5 minutes. It's a major airliner going down every single day, 9/11 happening every 10 days. And so this is why there's so much need to look at this. I started my career as a drug prosecutor. I admit that now, and you all can start throwing rotten tomatoes at me, right? Um, you learn pretty quickly when you first start as a prosecutor, you're like, I know the best treatment, it's jail. Um, that's the perfect solution. You quickly find out after about a week, it seems, that you started cycling people through and seeing them through, and you realize that didn't work. And so if we've learned and we've all grown and realized that addiction is not a criminal event, that we've stopped criminalizing addiction, why are we going to criminalize research? Why are we going to criminalize treatment when it shows great potential? And I think that's how we need to approach this issue as not only as Congress, but also as families and as individuals and stop the stigma because I'm convinced that's part of what's going on here. It's a continuation of the stigma. And believe me, I felt that. I'm embarrassed to tell you that almost 7 years ago, we're in our seventh year, almost 7 years ago, when my wife called me and said, come home. Um, and it was, "Oh my gosh, I can't tell anyone at work what's going on." It was when my daughter, she went to her boss at the time and said, "I need to go into detox." As a parent, I don't know how parents in the room. One of the most terrifying things you can see is your child going through detox. And we only got to see her after 4 or 5 days. And it was still pretty bad. But she called me and it was like, and they said, "Look, you have to tell your boss you'll be gone for a while." And she told her boss, and her boss said, it was great, great guy. He said, "Look, we love you. You're doing a great job. Go get the help you need. Your job's going to be here. But do not tell the owner, do not tell the big boss because you will get fired." And so my daughter did not go public with her story for a long time. And it was only when I was um, became the U.S. drug czar that we became more open and talking about it as she got more comfortable. And at that point, it was really too bad. She had left that position and gone to something else because I was like, please go public and let them fire you. Please, for the love of God. Because what I wanted to do is to shame, and I hate to say that, but shame people for stigmatizing addiction and for not treating it the medical condition that we know it is. And so now I promise Ryan, Congressman, I'll talk a little bit about my experience. And I did. I oversaw the $35 billion with a staff of about 100 people at the White House to help people with addiction and the prevention. And so to talk about it, I make sure the executive director in the back of the room is not throwing arrows. What happened back on that event with the FDA? The FDA has some wonderful people. There's talented, hardworking people, but they came to me as part of the convening process that I had at the White House to say, We need to criminalize Kratom." And I wasn't experienced with it. What they were saying made perfect sense. It was that, people were dying from it, and they presented their view. The next step in this was to get the DEA administrator, now a close friend and my business partner, um, and get him to sign off on it. And it was they were leaving me to go catch up with the DEA administrator when Brett Giroir, the Assistant Secretary for Health from Louisiana, don't know if we have any Louisiana folks in the room, um, uh, called me and said, "Did the FDA come?" He goes, "Yeah, they just came in and they are on their way to see the DEA." And he's like, "Where are they?" And so thankfully at the White House, you can sort of find people. And we were able to find the DEA administrator, relay that to Dr. Jawad, who tracked the DEA administrator down at National Airport, stopped him from getting on a plane, and said, "Do not sign the order. That the FDA has not been able to tell you the whole story." And it was sort of the one-sided view that Marilyn talked about. And I'm not saying that the FDA is bad. It's that they only had one view. They only knew what they were being told. And you have, and I'm sure they will make available the letter from Brett Giroir that was referenced to make sure that people understand that Brett Giroir, the Assistant Secretary for Health, who oversees the public health, oversees the U.S. Surgeon General, was livid about what the FDA presented that day, that it was only one side of it. So we did not have it signed. We made sure that it was withdrawn. And what we did, really, as far as I am concerned, is took away the criminalization of research and the criminalization of treatment. If I can come to you today humbly on behalf of my daughter, um, and her husband and my grandchild, I know that's kind of shocking. But as a grandfather, and I look at them today and I realize how incredibly blessed I am. How the treatment that Jack did many years ago on some of the MAT medication that my daughter used to maintain her sobriety at the beginning stages of coming out of detox meant that there were more lives saved. And that's what we're talking about today, is how are we going to save lives lost? Relapses today, we talked about fentanyl. I'm going to shut up after this one comment. Relapses today are different than the relapses that I experienced back in the 90s as a prosecutor, when you would see people, rotating through the courtroom where they relapsed and they were found, found to be using, found to be under the influence. You don't see that now with relapses like you used to, because as people recover, and relapse is part of recovery. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, that's a very common experience. But if you relapse these days, there's a tremendous increased chance that it's going to be a fatality. You don't know what you're taking. Your body does not used to the incredibly powerful effects of fentanyl as you're becoming weaned off. And so I hope to be able to speak to you a little bit different. I did want to use slides. I thought about it. I was like, I'm going last. At first, I was going to put up a picture of my daughter. And I thought that would be my slide. Right, John? I mean, you? The, um, but so today, that's what I'm here to talk about. And that's what I want to express to you all, is that desire to help these people that are suffering and be their advocate. So thank you. I sincerely appreciate this. Thank you.